Hey, how's it going? This is Joe again, and today I'm going to be taking a look at two budget bookshelf speakers. First is the well-known Pioneer SP BS22LR by Andrew Jones. This is currently retailing for $129 on Amazon, and a ton of people would recommend this. It's a great speaker for the price. It's a great speaker, period. Over here we have the Fluance Signature Series bookshelf speaker. This retails for $199 right now. Let's see how the two compare. So starting with the Pioneer, this is using a 1-inch soft dome tweeter and a 4-inch woofer. How they're able to get this much bass from this 4-inch driver, I have no idea. They're both about the same size, but the Pioneer has a tapered enclosure, so it tapers off to the back here, as you can see. On the back, you'll see a single rear-facing port. It has 5-way binding posts and is rated at 80 watts maximum with a 6 ohm impedance. The grill cover is not magnetic, so as you can see, it does have some holes in the front here for that, and it's an interesting oval shape. Now for the Fluance Signature Series. So this is also using a 1-inch silk dome tweeter. The enclosure is also tapered, but it's not as round as the Pioneer. So this is using a 5-inch woofer and what looks like some kind of Kevlar material. It also has a real phase plug, and that's supposed to help with different types of distortion. As opposed to the single rear-facing port on the Pioneer, this has dual front-facing ports, and on the back you'll notice a bracket so that you can mount this directly onto the wall. So there's the reason for the front-facing ports. You can actually mount this to the back of the wall, and because the port is not facing to the rear, you won't have any issues with that. These also come with 5-way binding posts, and they say that it can handle 120 watts maximum, and these are an 8 ohm impedance. When it comes to just looks, I have to give it to the Fluance here. It just looks much more refined. The yellow cone, the phase plug, the dual front-facing ports, the glossy piano finish on the front, and the surrounding piece for the tweeter is very nice. Feels like the surface of a record. The Fluance is very nice to look at, and a lot of people have said that it kind of resembles something that you'd expect from Bowers & Wilkins. A lot of people will assume that anything with a yellow cone is either Bowers & Wilkins or KRK. Not the case. Fluance has it too. I'm going to show you some frequency response graphs and tell you a little bit about them. So with the Pioneers, you'll notice that it has a pretty flat frequency response. Bass response is good to about 50 Hertz, and overall it's just a smooth presentation. The Fluance, on the other hand, has a little bit more character, let's say. It's not as flat as the Pioneer. You'll notice around 2 to 3 kilohertz that there is a significant dip. Why that is, I'm not sure, whether it was on purpose or not. Some people will like that, some people won't. Just know this, just because it has a dip there does not mean that it's a bad speaker. It just means that it has some character. There's something called the BBC dip. If you don't know about that, you might want to research that, and that's around 2 to 3 kilohertz. On the Bowers & Wilkins that I mentioned earlier, you will notice that it does exhibit some of the same behavior. A dip somewhere around 3 kilohertz. Maybe Fluance wasn't just looking for a similar look, but they were looking for a similar sound signature as well. Just a guess. A lot of purists won't like the fact that it doesn't have a flat frequency response, and I understand. In that case, go for the Pioneer. In my listening test, I didn't notice anything weird. It actually had kind of like a cool effect where it sounded like the speaker was less forward, let's just say. To some people, they might like that as well. Even though the bass extension is about the same on both of these, I did notice that the Pioneer had a little bit more of a bump in the bass region around 100 Hertz. So listen to see if you can notice that in these tests. So here are the sound demos. I try to mix it up a little bit. I have some electronic music, some stuff to test bass response, a test for soundstage and imaging, some piano, and some acoustic guitar. I wish I could play some music that we all know, but unfortunately there are some copyright restrictions here on YouTube. So before we get onto the sound demo, I just want to let you know how we did this. I'm using matched pair stereo mics, which means that they have been tested prior so that they have the same frequency response. Because they aren't necessarily calibrated mics, they don't have a perfectly flat frequency response. So what I've done is I've taken my calibrated mic, which does have a flat frequency response, and I've made a correction profile for these mics. In the future, I may end up just buying 2 calibrated mics. I've also accounted for the room. My goal was to make the sound that you hear as similar as the sound that I'm hearing with my ears here in this room. As people have mentioned in other videos, it's not a perfect way to demo speakers whatsoever. It's not meant to tell you exactly how these speakers sound on their own. One thing it can do is it can help you tell the differences between the two speakers, just to get a general idea. So things that are obvious like bass response or maybe treble response, those are things that you can tell. You can also tell a little bit about the tonality of the speakers. So now that that's out of the way, onto the listening demos.
Shadow drew again. You sit alone, alone. Only silence knows your name. Elaine, Elaine, Elaine. Things round you are nice and plain, and full of you, Elaine. But you are full of pain.
Alright, so what did you guys think? Which one did you like better? For me, I think that Andrew Jones did a great job with the Pioneer, especially at their price range. I think he understood that somebody spending this much on a pair of speakers is not going to have their room treated. They're not going to have all the best equipment. They might not even have it placed properly. So he's made these speakers very forgiving in those situations. They sound very consistent no matter where I put them and how I place them. In a reflective room like this, what you don't want is something with a sharp treble because it just makes it obvious. Those high frequencies start bouncing around everywhere. It's not a nice sound. I think these account for that. Although both of these speakers are pretty large for a desktop situation, I have a pretty large desk, so they work. I wouldn't mind using either one in that situation. These Pioneers are actually okay in a small living room situation also. These actually serve as the rear surrounds in my Dolby Atmos system. These are great speakers and I would be happy to recommend these to anyone. The Fluance is a little trickier to recommend. I think you could get the most of both of these speakers if you were to pair them with a subwoofer. Because this doesn't have that flat frequency response, it may appeal to fewer people. Personally, I like the way it sounds. I like that character. It sounds really good for jazz and other types of acoustic recordings. For electronic music and hip hop, it might not have enough punch in the bass, but that's where the subwoofer would come in. Keep in mind that these were designed to be surround speakers. So one thing that this can do that the Pioneer can't is it can be placed up near a wall. It doesn't care because the ports are in the front. So in a desktop situation, these are some of my favorite speakers and they look awesome. If you do want to use these at your desk because of the front facing ports, what you may want to do is use something like the mini DSP to correct for that dip in the 3 kilohertz range. That way you get the best of both worlds. You get a flat frequency response, you get the front facing ports, and you get an awesome looking speaker. I also forgot to mention that these use a magnetic grill. I'm a sucker for magnetic grills. Although most of the time I do leave it off, but because it's magnetic, they don't have any extra holes here for the grill. So I'm gonna have to place these up on the board. Let's see where they rank. Let's take a look at the leaderboard. This is for the Pioneer SP BS22LR. Best overall. Man, I really like these. So right here we have the Fluance AI40s and the Vanatude T0s. These are passive speakers. They sound awesome. The price is awesome. I'm gonna have to put them. T0, Fluance AI40s. I'm gonna have to put them right. This is a tough one. Above or below the AI40s? I'm gonna have to put them right here. Slightly above, just slightly. Just because they're so versatile and the sound, man, they sound awesome for that price. And they go louder than the AI40s. Shoot, I can't decide. Better than the Vanatudes. All right, so this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna bring the Vanatude down, and I'm gonna put this like right next to this. Right next to the AI40s. So best value. So these, sometimes they drop down. So they're $129 right now. Sometimes they go on sale. But these must be the best value. I don't know anything else that's going to be a better value. I would say they're about even when it comes to under 200 bucks too. All right. Let's see. Best for desktop BS22LRs. Well, they're not powered, so I'm going to have to put them over here. When you add an amp to them, they are pretty awesome on the desk. A little bit big for most people, so I'm just going to put it right here. There you go. That's where you live. All right, now the Fluance Signature Bookshelf. Overall, where do they land here overall? Above or below? They look awesome. They're more expensive than the Pioneers, but you can place them against the wall. But I think a lot of people won't like the fact that it's not a flat sound signature. I personally like that character, but just because of that, I'm gonna have to put it slightly underneath the Pioneer and the other Fluance, because the other Fluance AI40s did have an extremely flat frequency response, so slightly below. So these are under 199 bucks. I would say value-wise, they have to be below the AI40 and the Pioneers that sell for significantly less, so almost 70 bucks less for the Pioneers. So I'm gonna put these under here. Also for $199 you can get the Fluance AI40s, which are powered, they're sealed, and they're using DSP to make it a perfectly flat frequency response. So you get an extra amplifier with that one. And then best for desktop, I really like the way that these sound and look at my desk. The fact that the ports are in the front means I can put them up against the wall if I have to. They are not powered, but the Dayton ones are. I think if you were to add a small amp with this one, I'm gonna have to put these like right under the Cantos, because the Cantos are self-powered and they have a bunch of inputs. So I'm gonna even put them above the Dayton Audio one. There it is. That's where they land. So there you have it, the Pioneer SP BS22LR and the Fluance Signature Bookshelf speaker. Both great speakers at their price range, both great speakers, period. If you're interested in these, I'll leave a link in the description to them. Make sure to check out my Patreon. I have an exclusive podcast where I talk about this and other stuff in more detail. Anyway, that's it for now. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. And if you like this video, make sure to like, subscribe. You know what to do. Anyway, take care. Bye-bye. I'm a sucker for magnetic grills.